In this video, we're going to talk about architectural applications and the architectural application process in general. So to access this information, you would go to our website at www.meadowslink.com and you would go to the MNC Info tab. Click on the first drop-down item, which is architectural review information. It's going to pull up a page with a ton of information on the subject. So if you look at the page, I would highly advise reading through it because it will answer a lot of your questions. But other items on the page that are really important are architectural guidelines, which you can click on. All of these items here in a PDF file will come up. So you have the guidelines, you have the fence guidelines, and you have the actual application. So what you may or may not know from living in an HOA is that many improvements to your property that you would like to make, such as painting, landscaping, anything of that nature, typically require architectural committee approval prior to you doing them. And the architectural committee is actually made up of all homeowners in the association, and they are all volunteers. They volunteer a lot of their time and effort to make sure the community looks uniform and looks nice. And there are guidelines and rules set in place that everyone moving here needs to adhere to. So what you want to do before you ever do any improvement to your property, it's very important that you check the architectural guidelines and make sure that you get approval prior to doing it, or double check that that particular item doesn't require approval. So an example of this we can look at, we can click here on the architectural guidelines and it's going to bring up a PDF form. If you navigate through the guidelines, you can go to the table of contents, and most items or most improvements that you would like to do are going to be listed here in alphabetical order. So let's say, for example, I wanted to paint my home. I would just go to paint exterior and it will say page 27, and I could go to page 27. And right here is paint exterior. It's going to instantly say approval is required for new and existing house painting projects. So almost all of the categories that you're going to look at, it will say approval is required or not, or give the different conditions for that. It's extremely important or extremely helpful to you as a homeowner to make sure you follow this, because let's just say, for example, you painted your home and you painted a completely inappropriate color. Without having architectural approval, you may be asked by the HOA to repaint your home to a different color, and you may have to pay for that to be changed out of your own pocket or your own expense because you didn't go through the proper process to get approval to do that prior to doing that improvement to your property. So it's important to note here that the vast majority of improvements are noted in the architectural guidelines, and you can look here and see if you can find it. But one thing to note is that if it's not listed, that does not give you the right to just go ahead and do that improvement to your property. If something isn't listed in the architectural guidelines or it's not clear, you really need to check with the HOA to see if that improvement would be allowed, or if there's some other rules or stipulations to it. And it's always best to call us, email us, stop in and talk to us to get that information, because it can save a lot of money and a lot of headaches down the road. So like I said, look here and you can find the improvements you would like to do. If it's not listed, you definitely still need to contact us and make sure it would not require approval or get more information on it. Going back to this page, so essentially what you do once you know what improvement you want to do to your property, you would check the architectural guidelines, read about that particular improvement. Then the next thing you're going to want to do is fill out an application form. So you can go to our website here and you can download the form, you can print it, whatever you would like to do. Take the application form and it needs to be filled out. And that can be submitted to us in a variety of ways, and it will actually tell you on the form. You can email it to us at arc@meadowslink.com. You can mail it to us. You can drop it off in person. All of that information is listed here on that website. But you would have to fill out the application form and you would have to submit it to us. So there are dates and times for the meetings. Typically, architectural meetings are held twice a month during the busy season and once a month during the non-peak periods. So you can go down here at the dates and you can see when the next meeting is coming up, and you can look at the time of the meeting. But then what's also important is to look at the deadline for application for the meeting. So most of the time you need to submit information about a week prior to a meeting to ensure that it gets on the agenda for the meeting. So when you submit your application, you'll want to make sure you do it by the deadline. If you had done it in this particular instance by September 15th, then it would go on the agenda for the September 22nd meeting. And I will say that with an asterisk next to it, it will go on the agenda if the application is complete, all the information is concluded or included, etc. If for some reason the application is not complete, there's missing information, it might not go on the agenda, and our staff might ask you for additional information before we could present it to the committee. Once it goes to the committee at their meeting, they will essentially vote on it. You will then receive a letter in the mail, either approving it, conditionally approving it, or denying your application. And that letter will have more information from there. If your application's approved, you can keep that for your records and you can just go ahead and do the improvement to your property. If for some reason it's conditionally approved or denied, you would have the opportunity to appeal that to the Board of Governors, and all of that information would be listed in your letter. Overall, the main takeaway for architectural information improvements to property is it's extremely important to make sure you apply for any improvement to your property prior to doing so if approval is required, and that can be determined by the architectural guidelines. And I always stress, if for some reason there's confusion or you don't quite know, definitely email us, call us, stop in and get that clarified, because it will save a lot of headaches and potentially money down the road.